Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Raven's Table. Today we're here to talk about a game called NineMen'sMorris. NineMen'sMorris is a bit of a mouthful, but this is one of the more popular games of the medieval and ancient period. It was played over a period of multiple centuries in a very wide geographic area. So this is one that's definitely well worth learning from a historical perspective, but it's actually a lot of fun too. The name NineMen'sMorris is descriptive of the game itself. This is a two-player game. Each person starts with 9 game pieces, hence the 9 in the name. The word Morris comes from the Latin Morelius, which means a counter or a gaming piece. Here is an example of a NineMen'sMorris board. The game consists of 3 boxes inside of each other, connected by lines on the horizontal and vertical axes. Each spot where those lines intersect has a mark, and those marks come into play once we start playing the game. But before we get into how to play the game, let's talk history. So as I mentioned before, NineMen'sMorris is one of the older games that we know of. The date that the game appeared in history is of some dispute. There are multiple examples of ancient buildings that have a game board carved into the stones, but we don't know exactly when that carving was made in relation to when the building was built. For example, there's a building in Kurna, Egypt, where a NineMen'sMorris board was carved into the stones. This was a temple, and that temple was constructed about 1400 BCE. Another board was found carved into the stones of Hadrian's library, created by Roman Emperor Hadrian in 132 CE. And yet another was carved onto the floor of a platform in Diocletian's museum in Croatia, and that building dates from the 4th century CE. But like I said, these buildings, while they are ancient, we don't know when somebody came along with a hammer and chisel and carved the game into the stones. Could have been the year after it was made. It could have been several centuries later. We just don't know. One of the earliest literary mentions of the game came from a book written in 2 AD. It's called Ars Amatoria, which is a book on love, oddly enough. In book 3, the author, Ovid, wrote, "There is another game divided into as many parts as there are months in the year. A table has 3 pieces on either side. The winner must get to all the pieces in a straight line. It is a bad thing for a woman not to know how to play, for love often comes into being during play." Believe it or not, Shakespeare actually references this game in A Midsummer Night's Dream, in which Tatiana refers to this game by saying, "The NineMen'sMorris is filled up with mud." In India, this game is known as Navakankari. Game boards have been found scratched into stones dated to the 2nd century of the Common Era. And in southern Africa, this game was known as Moro Barbara and has likely been played for about 800 years or so. The author Joseph Strutt, in The Sports and Pastimes of the People of England, which was published in 1801, also referenced the game quite extensively, describing the rules in great detail. So from all this, you can see that it was played from BCE time period all the way up through even the modern day. You can find game boards that are manufactured professionally. So now let's take a look at some historical NineMen'sMorris boards. This is the board that was carved into the stones of Hadrian's library in Athens, a building that was created by the Emperor Hadrian in 132 CE. This board was carved onto the floor of a platform in Diocletian's mausoleum in Croatia, and that building dates from the 4th century CE. This board is carved into the stones of St. John's Basilica in Turkey, and that building dates from the 6th century CE. This 14th century board is made from spruce and can be seen in the Novgorod Museum in Russia. This fancy board dates from 19th century Spain and is crafted from wood, leather, and gold. This even fancier board is from Germany and is crafted from amber, ivory, brass, and ebony. And this illumination from the Book of Chess, Dice, and Tables shows 2 players playing NineMen'sMorris, while 2 others with pikes, probably soldiers, watch on, and this illumination was made in 1283 CE. So now that we've had a brief history lesson, let's have some fun and learn how to play NineMen'sMorris. Okay, so as we've seen before, this is your pretty standard NineMen'sMorris layout. You got the three boxes inside of one another, being connected by the lines on the horizontal and vertical axes, and each intersection has these little marks, and those marks are where the game pieces potentially can go. One of the neat things about NineMen'sMorris is, unlike most games you've probably played, the game actually starts completely empty, so all of these pieces start off the board like this. So this game is broken up into two types of phases. Phase one is what we call the placement phase, and that's where the game pieces actually get put onto the board. And then phase two is the movement phase, where, guess what, the pieces get moved around the board. The objective of the game is to remove your opponent's game pieces from play such that they can no longer win the game. And you remove game pieces by creating what are called mills. And a mill is a line of game pieces, 3 in a row with no breaks, and it has to be in a straight line. So you couldn't do 1, 2, 3 around a corner like this. It has to be, you know, a 3 straight line anywhere where you have these lines engraved into the game board. And every time you create a mill, you get to remove one of your opponent's game pieces from play completely. The only caveat to that is you are not allowed to remove an opponent's game piece that is in a mill itself. So if red, for example, has a mill here of 3, you couldn't remove any of these game pieces, but you could remove another. So that's it as far as the basic rules go. Let's go ahead and get a game started, and I'll kind of give you a sense of how the gameplay actually works. So let's say we flipped a coin and blue gets to go first. So blue is going to take one of their pieces and place it on the board anywhere they want to. So blue is going to start by putting one there. Now it's red's turn. So red's going to respond by putting one right there. So blue's going to go here. Obviously thinking about creating a mill of their own. So red's going to respond by blocking that. So now blue does not have the option of putting a mill there. Blue's going to put a piece there, and red is going to have to respond again. Now it's blue's turn. Blue's going to go here. Now red's got a problem because blue can create a mill in 2 different locations. Red obviously can't block both of them at the same time, so red's going to do the best it can, block one of them, but now blue has created a mill. So blue's going to choose a piece to remove from the board anywhere they like and remove it from play completely. So blue is going to take this red piece here, and it's off the board. Well, now it's now it's red's turn. Red is going to obviously not want to have this mill completed again, so block there. Blue's going to move next and go there. Red is going to block there. Blue is going to put a piece here. Red goes there. Blue's going to go here. Red's going to go there. Blue's going to go there. And red is going to go here. Okay, so we've now finished phase 1, or the placement phase. If you're paying attention, you can see that there is a first mover advantage. Red in a lot of that first phase was having to respond to what blue was doing. So there's a little bit, like I said, there's a little bit of advantage for whoever gets to go first. So now we're going to start the movement phase, and it's just like it sounds. Pieces get to move along the board anywhere where there's a line, 1 space at a time. So like red could move 1 space to here, but couldn't like do something like this. But it is blue's turn still. There we go. So now red's turn. Red is going to move to here. Blue again has only got 1 move in front of them, so it's going to go there. But now red has created a mill. So none of blue's pieces except for these 3 are in mills, so any of these other ones are fair game. So in this case, red's going to remove that blue one right there. So now blue's turn. Blue is going to move here. red's going to go to there. Blue's going to move here. Red's going to go there. Blue's going to move here, and then red's going to move to there. Now red's created another mill. So in this case, red is going to remove that blue piece from the board. So now blue is going to move. Blue's going to move to... Not a whole lot of good moves here right now. Blue's just going to move right there. Red's going to move here. Blue's going to move there. And red's going to move here. So red's created another mill. So in this case, red is going to remove that piece from the board. Now it's blue's turn. Now you may think that moving to here is the optimal move because you create a mill. This is where a rule that I play by comes in. I play that you're not allowed to keep creating the same mill over and over and over again because I think it's kind of a cheesy way to play the game. It's real lazy, it doesn't encourage any sort of creative thinking. So yes, while you could move back there and recreate that mill, whenever I play, like I said, it doesn't count. You can move back there, but you just don't get to take the piece away. Some people may play that way, some other people may not. It's completely up to you, your mileage may vary. Now, if the way I also play is if you are able to bounce between two different mills, and I'll show you a setup about that later, or how that works, that's perfectly fine because it takes some skill to set up being able to bounce between two mills, but bouncing back and forth between the other one, no go. So in this case, blue is going to move to here. Red is going to move here to block. Blue's going to go here. And red's going to go here. So red's created another mill right there. Still gets to take off one of blue's pieces. And in this case, red's going to take that one away. Blue is going to cry a little bit because blue's in a really bad spot, but move to here. Now, here's what I was talking about earlier. Red is able to bounce between two mills. So here's mill A and here's mill B. So you can go back and forth between the two. That's completely legit in the way that I play the game. So since red has moved another piece in place, created another mill, let's remove that one. Blue has effectively lost the game at this point. There's not much that blue can do to win, if anything. Blue's going to move there, red bounces to there again, and now blue is down to two pieces and cannot win the game because you have to have at least three to create a mill. So in this case, red has won, which is kind of interesting because for the first part of the game, during phase one especially, red was on the wrong foot. Red was having to respond to blue and didn't seem like they were in a really good situation, but was able to turn it around by the end of the game and as you can see, win pretty significantly because they only lost one piece during the whole thing. So that's NineMen'sMorris in a nutshell. So now let's talk about some of the relatives of NineMen'sMorris and some of the variations in the game that you may encounter. Let's start off with what's known as ThreeMen'sMorris, which I got a printed out version here. This one is probably an ancestor of what we now call as tic-tac-toe. The game takes place kind of in the same phases we talked about before. There's a placement phase and then a movement phase. So let's walk through it real quick. But basically the objective is to create a three-line mill. And you do that by, player one starts off, player two then goes, then red, then blue, then red. Okay, we've now completed our placement phase, so now it's movement. So you can move one space along any of these lines, and in this case, blue can win in one move because they just created a mill. If that wasn't the case, let's say, that's the situation we started off the game with. So blue could go, okay, blue's going to go here to block. Red's going to go to here. Blue's going to go there. And you basically go back and forth like this until somebody makes a mistake, and then boom, they've created a mill. So nice and easy, nice and quick, but it is a relative of NineMen'sMorris. Continuing on that theme, there's also what's known as TwelveMen'sMorris, which, take a look at the board as we have it right now, the 3 boxes connected by horizontal and vertical lines. TwelveMen'sMorris is the same board, but also incorporates the diagonal lines as well. And the game, other than that, is pretty much exactly the same, with one caveat there. You start off with 12 pieces each, and there's a risk with TwelveMen'sMorris because there are exactly 24 intersections on this board. Well, it's possible to actually have a draw after phase 1 if nobody lost a piece, meaning all 24 pieces are on the board, and therefore there are no empty spaces in which you can move. So at that point, the game is an immediate draw. It doesn't happen all that often, but it can happen. There's also a version of this called ElevenMen'sMorris, which solves that problem, meaning each person has 11 pieces only, and then there's always going to be at least 2 open spaces in which somebody can move. But other than that, the game is exactly the same. You're still trying to create the mills, remove pieces from the board, etc., etc. There's a fun modern version of NineMen'sMorris called LaskerMorris, and it was invented by Emanuel Lasker, who was the world chess champion for, let's see, from I think it was 1894 to 1921, I think it was. The main differences between NineMen'sMorris and LaskerMorris is each player will start with 10 pieces, and pieces can be, there's no separation between phase 1 and phase 2. Pieces can be moved immediately upon putting onto the board. So if we're playing here, red versus blue again, and blue puts there, red goes here, blue goes there, red goes here. If for some reason blue wanted to move like to there instead of putting down another piece, they absolutely could. It would be a silly thing to do because they should want to do that instead. But there's no separation between the phases, and like I said, there's 10 pieces each. It's a little more of a complex game. It results in fewer draws because it makes it a little more dynamic since you don't have the rigid phase 1 and phase 2. So that's it for today's look into NineMen'sMorris. If you look in the description below, there is a link to a document that will give you instructions on how to play the game, as well as a printable game board of your own. If you have any questions or suggestions for future topics, please feel free to leave a comment below. I'd love to cover things that you're interested in. But be sure to stay subscribed for more videos on historical gaming, as well as some future videos on how you can craft your own games and accessories. I have some of those videos planned. So until next time, I wish you luck and look forward to seeing you again at the Raven's Table.